Hey everybody, it's Jason Blaha here, and it's time for another breakfast with Blaha. And today I'm having Greek yogurt, frozen cherries, almond butter. All right, let's talk about box squats. This is something that comes up a lot, and I get people who will say, "I know you promote the box squat, but what's wrong with back squatting? Why do you have your lifters only box squat? What's so special about it?" And I think a lot of times in the past, I made the mistake of comparing them in a direct comparison, right? Under the assumption then that people are doing rep work on them. Under the assumption they're doing a bunch of rep work. But oftentimes we don't program any real rep work with heavy reps. We don't usually program box squats that way. We're usually programming them for speed work, in which case we're doing compensatory acceleration. And then we do other hypertrophy movements for whatever we need in lower body and back and so on. But I've talked in the past about, well, with the box squat, we have a better stimulus to fatigue, higher rate of force production. But here's the thing. It really is about the rate of force production and the ability to teach you to go wide that makes it so useful. Now, as far as the wide goes, understand that wider stance squatting uses more total muscles, right? Therefore, from a strength development and even a hypertrophy perspective, it's a superior exercise. And people can argue all that they want that a narrow stance squat, it works quad. It doesn't work more quad. That's not what the research shows. Being more quad dominant doesn't mean that you work more quad. It just means that you work less hip. Wider stance, again, seems to, in all the scientific literature, activate the quads just as much. The problem is that the narrower stance doesn't use as much adductor and abductor. Therefore, it doesn't carry over as well. This is, as Louis Simmons always puts it, wide carries over to narrow, but narrow doesn't always carry over to wide as well, right? It doesn't always carry over. Because it will oftentimes leave you with weaker hips. Now, we can use phases of narrower stances to let our hips heal. It's like we do with sumo and conventional deadlift, right? Something that we do. But generally speaking, wider is going to give us more muscle involvement. And most people are going to be able to eventually squat more weight with a wider stance. Particularly long femur lifters, those lifters who have long legs, narrower stance puts them at a very large mechanical disadvantage. They tend to always be weak. Those people struggle to build a squat if they stay with a narrow stance. So the wider stance is part of it because it's much easier to learn to squat wide on a box and to do it consistently. All right. The other thing we come to is the fact that we're using it for speed work. Well, with speed work, we have very, very little time to get stuff done. We're coming in and hitting 2 hard reps. Getting set up fast, hitting them fast, taking a short break, doing it again. It's very, very high work density. We're using it to develop compensatory acceleration. We're using it to develop speed. And it does have a hypertrophic component. But it's because we're using speed work that the box squat becomes so valuable, and here's a couple of reasons. Due to doing that, having that consistent depth, we have a consistent depth. And it's very hard sometimes to get that same consistent depth when we're trying to do wide stuff if you're just coming down and doing a pause squat in the air. Because people will ask that, they'll be like, could we just do a pause squat? In theory, yes. But in practice, no, and it's not that hard to set up a box. The other problem is you might learn to consistently hit hip depth on a single heavy rep, particularly with the wide stance. But when you're doing speed work, we don't have time to focus it. We're coming in and just pop, hitting our 2 reps, resting a minute, pop, hitting 2 reps, resting a minute. We're doing this 9, 10, 11, 12 times, doing up to 12 doubles. It's usually what I do, 12 doubles. You're having to do it quick. You're going to miss a lot of those reps trying to do it that way. And you're going to be having to focus on all that, rather than just using the box, and you'll be consistent with your depth every time. The other thing, we know based on the data that's looked at it that the box squat has the highest rate of force production. Well, what are we doing with speed work? We're training for rate of force production. We're trying to maximize compensatory acceleration. We're trying to maximize how fast we accelerate that bar. And we're using that as our training modality in place of tension. Okay? So because of the fact that we're doing most of our squatting as speed work, the box squat becomes a superior tool. And people can deny this all they want, but you guys have seen me build pretty big squats. I've got clients who have demonstrated, some of them who hit some pretty big squats, and this is how we train. All right? It's just how we train. And people can argue all they want and say, well, it's not proven to be the best way. There are people who are very successful who don't use this method. That's all true. But if you're going to claim that it hasn't built hundreds or thousands of elite squatters, you would be wrong, because it clearly has. So you can't claim it doesn't work. But here's the thing, the speed work is easy to recover from. It does not beat you up. It leaves you able to handle a lot of other volume. And then we can use other exercises to fill in the gaps in the hypertrophy. Well, what do we mean? What do we use for squats? Glutes, adductors, quads, those are your primary movers, right? What's our stabilizers? What helps us maintain bar position? Our erectors in our back, right? We can come in and do good mornings, back extensions. We can do some extra upper back work to help keep that tight, rowing, high pulls, dumbbell shoulder work. We can do a lot of things to build that area up also, right? To give us that stability we need. But those are not primary movers. Those are things that will cause you to miss a lift due to weak stability and ability to hold your bar position. But those other muscles are the ones that move the weight. And then if you build those up, right, which again can be done in a way that doesn't beat you up. You will be a lot more beat up if you come in and try to use back squats to build all your lower body and everything. You're going to be way more beat up. You're going to create way more fatigue that's going to last with you outside of the gym. And it's also going to impact your ability to train. I'm not saying it doesn't work, I'm saying it comes at a higher cost. I would point out to people that I would rather use a training style and methods that allow us to build the same muscle, the same strength, the same power, the same speed, possibly more, while recovering better. That would seem to make a lot of sense, because then it lets us do other things. It lets us work on other training. It lets us not feel beat up day to day, improves our quality of life. But even then, if we're recovering better, that leaves us room to do other stuff, like more conditioning work if we want to get in better shape. So this is why we use box squats. I mean, there's a lot of reasons we could argue for heavy fives or whatever, that they're better. We can make that point, but that's not how we actually use them in the conjugate system. It's because they're the best choice for speed work, probably why we use them so much. All right, guys, well, that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative, and I will talk to you guys next time.